Back to your favorite podcast, Two Homeschool Moms. I'm Nikki.
And I'm Ashley. If you're looking for real, raw, and relatable moms who talk all things homeschool and mom life,
you're in the right place. So, how was your, I feel like we haven't done this in forever.
I know, it's been a while since we filmed because we took 3 weeks off from filming?
Yeah, what's new?
Through the holidays. Just a lot. I've been in pure cleaning mode, not cleaning, organizing mode, and just, things that have been on my to-do list for months.
Yeah.
I'm getting them done. I lost my passport 3 years ago and I just went and got it, reported it lost and got a new one. And there's certain things when it comes to myself that I just won't take care of. If that would have happened to one of my kids or Nick, I would have been let's go, let's get it done. So checking those off. Ooh, what did you just pop open? I love that sound.
My diet beverage.
I have lemonade today. That's what we're doing.
It's funny how we always put ourselves on the back burners.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a typical mom thing as well, but just life gets carried away. If you're not going out of country, why focus on it?
And that's kind of where I'm I don't need it, but I don't want to be in the position where I need it and that then it's a 2 or 3 month waiting period.
Yeah.
So, and I don't want someone out there with my passport somewhere.
How's your school been going?
It's been going good because we didn't really take a break, so there was really no issue after holidays. Yeah, it's all good. We are though going to kind of start jumping into switching some stuff around. My girls are over the point of doing a lot of subjects together. So as much as that's so easy for me and it helps me a lot, they're over it and they want to separate a little bit. So gonna work through that and figuring that all out somehow.
Well, that worked for a year.
Right? I'm everything's great, everything's fine. And they're we don't want to do this together, which I get it. Emma is pulled down a little bit in some of the lessons and they're just different. So it is hard to keep mashing them together when there's such different kids,
Yeah, for sure.
But other than that, we're good. How about you guys? Because you were on a break and you started a job. So you're just let's go. Let's get a lot of things done.
Yeah, honestly, I literally just started us out full force and went against your advice and was I'm just gonna have her do it all and we'll see how this goes. She freaking did it. So the first day we were back to school was the first day we were back to was the first day I was back to work.
Okay.
And so I printed out a sheet for her in Homeschool Planet and I added more instruction than I would usually have on there. I went to work. I had the Homeschool Planet printed out. She had a checklist. It actually, so it went really well, but I'm an idiot. So her language art, we already did that lesson. And for whatever reason in my Homeschool Planet, when we were about to start our break, I'm pretty sure we just powered through whatever was there and I didn't update it. And so I forgot that we did that lesson. So she was weird with my mom, I already did this. I'm not doing it again.
Because it says this is what I need to do. And she's I already did that. That's how she's very...
Yeah, and she remembered because we had wrapped up our Good and the Beautiful book. And so it was a book review lesson. And she's well, I already did that. I already said all those things, So, and she handed me the report or whatever that she did. So I was my bad. Sorry. So she didn't make her redo the lesson. They just read through some of the stuff, but whatever. It was fine. She read her story on her own. She completed her questions or answers to the comprehension questions. Math, we were also behind or something a lesson. So she did times tables, instead of out of our Math with Confidence, which is fine. It's not a big deal. I forget what she did, but I was so impressed. She did so many things on her own that day. Just not she was down here before I even left for work. She wanted to come downstairs and start doing her morning work.
Mm-hmm.
Before I don't know, it had to have been 8:00 or 7:30. And I was
wow.
No, you can't. You'll be done by 9:00 and then you're going to have all day to fill your time because there's no devices until 3:00.
Yep.
So I'm please don't. I'm like, you're going to be bored. Yeah. So I'm like, I know that's not like a thing to say, like, please don't start school.
But it is.
But
when you're like counting on that to keep them busy, when you need them to be busy, it's definitely a thing.
Yeah. So I was like, you can start when I leave for work. And so she did, came down here in the basement all by herself, sat here and did her morning work, which for those who don't know, morning work to us is just like spelling and handwriting, and like she writes like an affirmation sentence. So yeah, she did all of that. And then, you know, she moved on to her other stuff. And if she needed my mom's help, she went up and asked. And I told her, like, don't bug her, you know, like if she can't help you at that right moment, like it's fine. Like I'm literally like prepping her for the worst case scenario, because I'm like, you know, my mom works as well still, even though like, you know, she's from home. So like she still has meetings and stuff that she has to do. So I'm like, girl, I'm not here to like tell you, like, you know, you have to try to be independent about it. But she did really, really, really well. So awesome. And work went really, really, really well. So it was a good start. And we didn't miss any days. So that's always a plus.
Yeah, because how easy would it have been to just be like, okay, we're not doing anything. You know, like how it's easy to get into that kind of mindset.
Yeah, very easy. And I mean, we had a really busy week. We had to do something every day last week. So it was just one of those things where it was like, nope, we're just going to do it. It might not be in the morning, but we're going to do it. And we're going to get it done, because this is our first week back and we have to start a routine somehow, some way. So
yay. Yeah. How awesome. I'm excited for you guys.
Yeah. So let's get into our topic, shall we?
Yes, let's do it.
All right, I got a quote. So this is a quote from the article written on The Guardian that what do you call those people that watch us? Watcher?
I don't think that's the right
subscriber.
Word. I would say subscriber. It's not a watcher.
I guess watcher would be a little creepy.
Sounds super creepy.
A subscriber had sent to us an article and wanted us to have a discussion on it. So we decided to do that. So I'm going to quote. This is from The Guardian. It's like a paid newsletter and shares trends of homeschooling in the U.S. So the quote is, as more people in the U.S. choose to homeschool their children, experts have warned that the lack of oversight over the process leaves children at risk of isolation, receiving a poor education, or suffering abuse and neglect. So to me, that's a powerful quote, because there are a lot of claims here and in a negative light. And I feel like we have definitely some discussion. We can counter these points or even agree with some of them. So let's start with, what factors contribute to the rise in homeschooling in the U.S.? Like, how has it evolved over the years from...
So I think that's why this article became a thing, because I think there was a study released like a couple months ago. I'm sure everyone has seen that chart where it shows like what happened after 2020 of homeschooling just taking off. So I think this is kind of in response to that, where people are like, okay, there's a lot of people homeschooling now.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to understand why people homeschool. And I think it's this article, as much as I didn't like reading it, it was almost like it opened up a different side to homeschooling, because here we are, where I feel like we dedicate so much of our time to homeschooling. We want to be around our kids. We want to teach them in a unique way. And we really like care about their education. I don't think that's who they're focusing on in this article. And I think that's where we get so defensive, because we're not doing it out of malicious reasons or because we're lazy. It's quite the opposite. And so I think the reason for homeschooling has also changed from 15, 20 years ago, why people used to homeschool.
Yeah, even longer than that. You could go back and, I mean, if you think about it, like it's saying we're leaving children at risk for isolation, but let's just put in picture of why would someone who wants to dedicate their time to homeschooling their children forcefully put them in isolation? Like, no, we are the hardworking, parents who are trying to find every which way for our child to be involved in things, to join co-ops, to be in all the millions of Facebook groups that there are now, and get them out there so they're not isolated. Like, I was mad when I read that, yes, it does leave them at risk for people but like, I don't know. I guess I feel like the people who are abusing and neglecting kids in this sense aren't actually homeschooling them.
I agree. Like, yeah, they're at home, but
they're at
that's not
home, but they're not being schooled.
homeschooling. And then, well, there was one part in the article where it says kids who are abused, they go to school and like Child Protective Services rely on school officials and teachers to like report those things. Sure. But also, I mean, that happens in schools. Abuse happens in schools. People overlook things. So, I mean, that happens anywhere. You can't just say because a child goes to public school, they're less at risk. I don't think there's no way.
Yeah, and you're going to have some teachers who may not report it. You're going to have some teachers who report it and it gets brushed under the rug. Like,
yeah,
there's a whole slew of different scenarios. And I feel like a lot of people homeschool because of the abuse that is in school or the bullying or whatever's going on in the public school situation for that family. Especially if they're ones that transition from public school into homeschooling and haven't done it all along. Like there's a million things and that we could go on and on about, but the article made it seem that it was more often than not that that's what happened with homeschoolers. Right. And I beg to differ.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, and that's kind of what you came across in the article and why it made you so upset is that it has a ton of claims against homeschooling, but limited data and facts to support it. And I think that's where people are frustrated because they want the facts. They want to see, or it's almost like they want to put the target on our back. They want homeschooling to be pushed into this little corner of like, well, let's talk about taxes and funding and everything. Mm-hmm. Like, what are the schools going to do? And, well, they still get our money technically. I mean.
Exactly. Like our taxes don't get reallocated to ourselves. I'm still paying for other people to public school their kids. And again, that's like a choice we make. So I do think it's important. We will post like the link to this article in whatever description box if you're listening or if you're watching this. This article's long. There's a lot to it. We're not going to talk about everything it covers, but there are a lot of claims and there's a lot of reference to experts, but I don't know who these experts are because they're not named and there's no like sources to like figure out what's happening in this article. So you can read it at your own risk.
Tell them who the expert they named was in the article.
Oh, there is one. I'm not going to say her name, but it's a person, one person who was homeschooled and we don't know how old she is. We have no idea what part of her life she's in. And she just said, what did she even say? That she wished she would have got out more? She wished she would have socialized more?
Yes.
And so, okay, I'm thinking to legally be able to give a quote to an article, she has to be over 18, right?
Right.
I'm assuming she's older. And so that means she's not homeschooling in what we're talking about homeschooling in the last 4 years. It has drastically changed. Homeschooling, 10, 15 years ago, we go into that stereotype of like, some maybe crazy like cult religious reasons for homeschooling. And it's so different now. And that's what people need to realize is we're just normal people just taking it into our own hands.
Well, that's a good point to make. What ways do you think homeschooling has changed in the last 4 years other than, the type of people that are homeschooling?
I don't think it's any more like the religious kind of aspect to it. Like, yes, there are still tons of people who do it for religious reasons, but I think it's expanded more of just to get away from our public school systems. It's not to keep our kids from anything except, I don't know, we've talked about this about public schools, but they're not gaining anything in public school anymore. The school system hasn't changed in 50, 60 years. It's not preparing them to be independent thinkers. It's not unleashing their creativity. It's like a one mold fits all, and all of our kids are different. And we're all products of public school.
Well, I just found out that in my school district, there is no gifted program.
Oh, like the GATE program, the gifted achiever something?
Yeah. So the kids who are actually gifted are bored out of their mind.
Yeah.
And we're getting all kinds of, and don't get me wrong, there are some teachers who will cater to them and give them and challenge them with with extra things that they can add on to them specifically. But not every teacher has the time or means to do that. Right. And I'm just shocked that we didn't have a program in our district. I mean, I live in a very populated area. This is not like I'm in rural country where, you know, it might be harder to pull these resources and stuff like this. Like, we have the means to be able to create a program like this. Mm-hmm. And likely the funds. So why in 2024 are we at this point in life where we can't cater to gifted children? And so what are these parents doing now? They're going into our Facebook moms groups and they're, what do I do? What do I do? How do I get my son to not be bored in class? And a majority of the comments there are people are going, well, I pulled my kid out to homeschool.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's the flip to that too. I had friends who, they were in our public schools and they knew their child needed to be held back. They were like, it wasn't like a learning disability. They just needed extra time. And the parent was like constantly telling the teacher, and the teacher's like, I can't do anything. I don't have time to focus on one kid when I have 24 other kids that need help. And so this mom had to like go like months and like just think about that kid. Like, all she needed was a couple extra like things to do or like a plan, but like they can't do that. And yeah, we can't expect the way our public schools are ran to customize lessons for 25 kids. It's not the way they're built to do that. Right. And so that's where I think the rise is happening, because we know what our kids need and the schools can't do that for them right now.
Well, and the schools have a hard time just keeping teachers on their staff in general right now. For them to have extra help to cater maybe to some of these requests is also a staffing issue. Mm-hmm. They just don't have the people. They don't have the people even wanting to be teachers as much anymore these days, statistically wise. Like, there are not kids going to college to become teachers right now, or there's a significantly less amount. And that overall it's not going to help them add further to their not curriculums, but just in general, like add to the rise of whatever they're going to add to their program, which is why our district is lacking a gifted program, which blows my mind. But we could go on and on and on about that topic and what lack or whatever versus we're not here to bash public school by any means. And we're not here to bash homeschooling or vice versa. Like, we're only sharing like what our opinion of this article and so forth. The one thing that I noticed or that I liked as a discussion point here is, do you think that there should be more regulations or oversight in homeschooling to ensure safety, quality of their education for kids?
Yeah, so I like this part of the article too, just kind of bringing it up. So it's hard for me to answer that because I'm someone who keeps records, and I could gladly be like, here, I could show you everything we've been doing for the past 3 years. And it wouldn't bug me. I test my kids. So I think my opinion is solely based on, because I'm already doing it, it doesn't really bug me. And I also think, because articles like this are coming out, because people want that hard proof, like, is homeschooling okay compared to public school? We kind of need to like show them.
Prove ourselves?
Yeah, we kind of need to be like, look, this is what we're doing. Our kids are doing this and they can do this and they're happy and they're social. But also, like, where's that balance? We don't want too much oversight, because then we're kind of getting ourselves looped back into government and public school. Yeah. So I see both sides, but I'm not a fan of unschooling either. So I know people like that, but like, I could never do that. I would freak out.
Well, it's not that you're not a fan of it. It's just not something you could do in your homeschool.
I couldn't, because I like results. I like data. Right. I want to make sure things are going right. And it helps me too. We all have that like homeschool mom, like guilt. Like, am I doing enough? And so like, it also helps me like calm down. Like, yeah, you're fine. Like, nothing's wrong.
Yeah, but you also have to put it in perspective of like, if it's not that we have to prove ourselves to anybody, it's more just that like, if anyone just took 5 seconds of their day and actually spoke with our children, they wouldn't need a test result to show how brilliant and smart our kids are and socialized and everything else. Like that's literally all it takes is to have. I'll never forget one of the doctors I took her to, like, used to hem and haw about, well, she needs to be in school, like she needs socialization. And I'm like, have you talked to my child? Like, she's been talking to, I mean, maybe this is an only child thing. Don't get me wrong, there are probably kids that don't. But she's been literally talking to, having one-on-one conversations with adults since she was able to talk. I mean, don't go there. Like, interview my child then, you know? Like, don't try to put it on like, oh, she needs to be in socialization in school. Like, they even socialize there.
Right.
Or not in the sense of the freedom that they get not in school. But that was one of the things, and I switched doctors after that because I'm not going to have that conversation every time I go to the doctor's office. If you can't see that my child is doing well and encourage her and support her in what my family has chosen to do, that's legal, then I don't need to be your patient.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to like, what does it mean that a kid's doing well? You know, like what are we basing that off of? Like,
test scores?
Does your doctor, your pediatrician, they give you like a little paper like, oh, this is what they should be doing at age 5? Like, do you remember those? I used to rip that up. I'm like, get away from me. Like, you can't tell me every 5-year-old is exactly the same. They're not. There's no freaking way. So it's just judgment.
Well, it's judgment, and I always felt like ridiculous filling those out just for me as the parent, thinking, oh man, I didn't teach her that by now. You know, like it fell on me because I was the parent. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of judgment, but it's a lot of crap. I mean, I get they base it on things for like mental illnesses and like or disabilities and stuff like that.
Early warning signs. Yeah.
Right. I understand it to a point, but
so what do you think then about like talking about safety then? Like as far as oversight, like, okay, and each state is different. So like your state, how often do you have to like check in with your state and say, hey, we're still homeschooling?
Never.
Yeah, I had to do it one time.
I don't even think that was the case. I did that when we first, because I originally enrolled her in kindergarten. And then I pulled her and just wrote the principal and was like, hey, we're deciding to homeschool. And that was it. I didn't say anything else. That was it. And I've never said anything since. I don't have... Illinois doesn't have any homeschool laws. I don't have to report. I don't have to keep track. I don't have to log. I don't have to have a portfolio. Now, I'm not saying that that's necessarily right, as I do feel like in those circumstances, it can be complicated to know that a child is actually learning somewhat and not getting abused and neglected at home. But at the same time, like that's partly why a lot of us homeschool, is that we want the freedom to be able to teach what we want to teach and not have to go by the public school system and what they think we need to teach our kids. It's a catch-22, I feel like, you know, like I feel like there should be something there, but I don't know how much we really want to regulate that. And I know other schools are different. I know, I think you said Florida, they have to have like a portfolio.
They have to have someone come in and like review stuff.
And I know, at some places, like someone actually comes to the house and like does stuff. But I don't know, as far as safety,
like, do you really think like doing an annual, like, yep, we're still homeschooling is like going to save anyone? Like, do you think that's like, that's what this article is saying, is that like, and no, that's going to happen whether there's a check-in or not, because people who choose to hurt kids are going to do what they're going to do.
It's no different than who was that lady? Actually, we had a kid, I think it was in Illinois, actually. I think she got off from going to prison because this boy was found, I think he was killed. And so many people came to the house, like CPS workers or whatever they're called, and did these checks, and it didn't do anything.
Yeah, they failed him.
What difference do these people, I get there needs to be some system in place, but there are definitely flaws in the system, you know, like there's no way you could prove or not prove or see every single sign of abuse or neglect or something like that to be able to change or make change. Like stuff like that also takes time and court appearances and like that's not something that happens and by then a kid could die.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't know. You just don't know. And I don't have the answers to that. I definitely have thought a lot about it over the years, but I can't find or think of an answer that would make it better. But there's definitely flaws there. But like you said, they're not going to know just coming, oh, hey, can I see your grade book? Like,
right.
How's it going? Like, of course we're going to be like, great. It's going great.
Yeah, everything's fine. Here's all my
Our
A's.
kid's outside right now. We don't know where it is, but he's outside. He's doing homework or something. Like, what are they going to do? Do you think they're going to shuffle us away in a van when we say, oh, it's doing horrible? Like what would then be the consequence of that? What would be, would they write us a fee or like a fine? Like what would that look like? Yeah, there's a lot that would have to, I don't know that could ever happen at any time soon in the recent future because there's so much that would have to go in place for that. I feel like.
And that's why it's unfair of this article to corner homeschooling as like a source of that when it's a completely separate factor. That has nothing to do with homeschooling. But then as I'm thinking here too, because I want to say that girl that they were quoting in the article, she was saying that she wasn't educated enough. She wasn't taught enough. And I think the article does talk about that, like us not teaching them enough. Well, I'm sitting here thinking about my lovely public school experience and some of the poor choices I made. And no hate to my parents, but there was a part where I just showed up for class and did no work. I failed all my classes and nothing happened because you know what? I talked to my teachers and I got them to pass me. I didn't learn anything. I learned how to talk my way out of things. And so at the same point, yes, we could not do anything with our kids, but they could also do nothing in public school.
It's got to be the student's want.
Right.
If they want to learn more and the parent goes, here it is, that's all you got.
Yeah.
Then that's the parent's fault.
Right.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But like if you're a student and you're not pushing or challenging or wanting more out of your own education at that point in your life, because if you're a teenager, you're able to form those type of opinions or thoughts. Whether you're interested in this or not at this point.
Yep.
And should they want and the parent does, then okay. But like you, I skipped every Friday, I think, of my senior year. And called in and pretended I was my mom. And I must have a really mature voice because they believed it, as my friend who also called in and got caught every single time because her voice just doesn't sound like her mom. But yeah, I still passed. I still got decent grades. I graduated a whole semester early. I graduated in January. And yet, could I tell you anything about it? No. Yeah. Why? Because I wasn't interested. I wasn't an interested student to learn anything either. I just wanted out of there.
Yeah, right.
So I did everything. I manipulated the system in every way, shape, or form to make sure I passed. And I remember I took a class at home because it was like over the summer or something.
Yeah.
I failed like government.
Yeah. That's like the one class you need as a senior to pass.
Yeah, it was like government or U.S. I don't know. It was something important, okay? And so I remember I had a friend who her boyfriend was freaking amazing at it. And he legit did all the work for me. And I just had to memorize what I needed to know on that test. So he did all like the work stuff. And then I went in on the test and was like, yeah, I didn't learn any of this, but I memorized what I needed to know. And I passed.
Yep.
So, like, do I know anything about that to this day? Absolutely not. But what I can tell you, what I learned in 8th grade, is I can sing to you the, like, We the People. What is that? Bill of Rights?
Okay. Yeah.
Where it's like, we the people in order to form order. I can only sing
it a song
to you.
Or just like what it says?
It was on like School of Rock.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Right. Well, I can sing it to you. I couldn't tell it to you, but I could sing it to you because it was catchy and I remembered it.
Yeah.
But I don't remember anything else.
So I think that just clarifies, like, it doesn't matter if your kid goes to public school or you homeschool them. because it's going to be ultimately, we can try to instill good habits, but it's going to be what they end up retaining and caring about and being interested in.
Yeah, 1000%. Yeah. Just like my kid, I know is not going to give two craps about math. And because she's not interested in it. But I'm still going to make sure that she gets the bare minimum, like, necessity of knowing how to do math. And then I can introduce a calculator. As long as she knows how to get from point A to point B without a calculator, I'm okay with giving her a calculator.
Right. Because what do we use all day long?
Right.
Calculators. Right.
Exactly. I still count on my fingers, so I'd rather use a calculator.
Yeah.
Look at how far I got in math. I graduated in algebra 2.
Yeah, see?
Because I was allowed.
I don't even know. Well, no, I lie. I didn't. I had to retake algebra in college, and I about cried. That was a rough time. And this was like 5 years ago, people. So,
I can't even imagine now what it would be like.
But time.
Another thing that this article, and I'm going to let you, because you really did your research here, but another thing that they mentioned is other countries and comparing U.S. to other countries and homeschooling. And they said, I forget what they said. What did they say?
They said it's illegal to homeschool in other countries.
Right. Yes. Yeah. In the article. So tell us more about your research and what that came up as.
Yeah, so I'm not good when people use always or never type of verbiage because then I need proof. And that's this whole article. I was like, I need, like, who told you all this? So their quote in the article was, other countries don't allow homeschooling. And I'm just going to say one thing. Other countries don't allow a lot of stuff the United States do. So if we want to go backwards and not allow things, then you're probably living in the wrong country. But we're not going to get into that. So what I did is I looked at 2 other countries just to compare. I was just like, okay, let's talk about it. So Germany, it's completely illegal to homeschool. You will be arrested. You will be fined. You are not allowed to do it. And then I looked at Finland because Finland has the happiest and like highest testing type students at like a high school level. It's where homeschooling is not illegal there, but it doesn't happen. And so I'm like, okay, so like why? Like what's going on in these countries? Well, just to point out, and you guys can look up all these facts, both Finland and Germany only have like between 3 to 5 hour school days. Their school days are a lot shorter than here in America, and their curriculum is more interest-led or trade-led, meaning you don't go through 10 years of math unless you're going to be a mathematician. You would start going to a trade in your older years to focus solely on like whatever expertise you want. And so there's a lot more customization in their curriculum. There's a lot more breaks. There's breaks on top of recess. Yeah. So like you can't say these other countries don't do it. Well, they don't do it because they don't need to. Their schools work how I think we envision what we want to work. And so that's not a fair statement. We're homeschooling because we don't like our public schools, you know?
Well, and we feel we can offer our children a better education and cater it to their needs and wants. And like, you know, if that was in the US right now, I would tell you I'd send my kid to school.
Yeah, if I knew my kid wasn't going to sit there and be drilled, like you have to go to college, you have to do calculus, math, and, you know, biology, science, but why? Why, if they want to go do hair, then why are we making them go down this path? Right. You know, because I told you guys this before, like that's how I felt. I felt so boxed in, and it like wasted a lot of my like early adulthood because I'm like, wait, I'm supposed to be going to college. I'm supposed to be going to this, but I don't even know what I wanted to do. You know?
Yeah, I agree. And do you think, in your opinion, that because we're talking about, you know, maybe someday these regulations are being more regulations in our states and stuff like that, do you think that that could happen in the U.S.?
I don't know. It would have to be a complete overhaul.
Yeah. And I don't think we have a politician anywhere in the U.S. of any state that would be willing to or have the talent to or knowledge to do something of that length.
Yeah, it would almost need to be, I mean, okay, so, and I'm not trying to get on government, but like think of how the DMVs ran. That is a government entity and it is the worst system and it has never changed. So like it's almost like, and I don't know how, but it almost like it needs to be its own like corporation. Like the government doesn't need to be involved in the schools. Like let us a smart business, let some teachers run this who know like what kids should be around.
Or parents.
Yeah, or parents, or whatever. Like there's people out there, and they could figure it out. Yeah, like it's just not working. The system doesn't work. It's so old. It's never been updated. And even like the way school buildings are, they look like prisons. Like, have you seen the meme where they like line up a high school and a prison, like the cafeterias, the entryways? It's literally like a prison, like
because it's a system.
It's a system.
It's a system.
Yeah.
One word to describe is a system. I mean, if you think about it, like that's why it was made for ease of access on all levels.
Yep.
And going back to what we've discussed before, school's purpose and intent was for factory line workers.
Right.
Orderly, like it had, I don't know, we could go on a rant and a tangent and everything else, but I don't see the U.S. having an overhaul like that.
I think there's other things that they got to worry about first. And so all I could say is don't let this article offend you, because I got extremely offended while reading it. And it is frustrating, but I don't know, like I know not everyone has the option to homeschool. I know it doesn't work out in everyone's day-to-day lives, but just be aware of your kids' education and like let them have fun. Like let them learn things that they want to learn. Like just try to like guide them the right way.
Yeah. And based on your research, what we've learned is don't focus on standardized testing.
Yes, because other countries don't do standardized testing. All the United States does. And I found that quite interesting.
The United States completely, that's their main like focus and what they base a student on. So imagine your child who is very, very, very passionate about wanting to do hair in life.
Mm-hmm.
And if they come home and they don't have a good ACT or SAT or whatever standardized test they're doing that day, don't get on their butts about it.
Yep.
Just saying. Yep.
Well, and that's what our teachers are taught to do, is you teach them to pass the test. And when do we ever do that in real life?
Yeah.
Like we don't just pass the test at work. We have to actually know the job and understand what we're doing.
Well, and I have a friend right now who's a teacher in Texas, and she's having a really, really tough time because they keep changing around the curriculum, or they're forcing them to use certain curriculums. And so they're wanting these like results and expectations out of a certain thing, but then like they don't, or they're pulling them out of classes to go do some dumb thing. So they're losing time to even teach them the things that they want them to learn. And so then they're hipping and hawing over the testing not being good. Well, you can't have it all.
Yeah.
And like you have, like, I don't know, there's so much about testing and everything else. I mean, even teacher training in other countries was high training to set on a whole other different level. I don't know what the age or level of degree it was per se, but what for US you have to be,
you just have to have a bachelor's
fresh out
degree.
Of college, right? So they could be 23.
I was going to be 22 if I would have continued, because I graduated when I was 16. So I would have been 22 in a high school. There's no way you could tell me that would have been the right choice. No way.
Wait, you graduated when you were 16?
I did. I actually homeschooled myself. I don't know if I ever told you that. So I was being really bad and I was over school and I was just like, I don't want to go. And so I dropped out. And I found this like place where you could basically like go and test out of classes to get your credits. Cause I only needed like 3 credits when I dropped out. And so I got you got like curriculum books and you just had to study them and pass like a test. And so I did it all myself. I drove myself to this little like place. Yeah. And I got it because I wanted a high school diploma. I didn't want to get like a GED or anything. And I was smart. It wasn't that I wasn't smart. I was way too social in school. Like I cared way too much about what other people thought about anything but learning. And so, I graduated when I was 16 in like April. And then I think I had just turned 17 that summer. And then I started at community college to be a teacher. And so, yeah, 17, 18, 19, 20. Because it was if I would have like fully done it, I could have been a teacher before I was 21 years old.
Wow.
Now tell me if that sounds right. No, that's like, there's no way.
Yeah, that's like, you don't even have, like, your brain isn't even.
Your brain's, there's proof you're not fully like done until you're 25. You shouldn't make any important like life choices till you're 25.
Yeah, that's wild.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild.
Yeah. So yeah, the US get a bachelor's degree and have fun teaching kids. They do require, I think, like a college course every couple years, but they don't teach you how to, customize stuff for kids. They don't teach you they just don't do that. Because they just need teachers, so they can't. They just need people. They need bodies to stand in front of more bodies,
Yeah. I'm glad we had this conversation because I think it opened up a lot of rabbit holes, and I'm sure it will for other people to do their own research and really take this article at face value and just do your own research, people. Like I'm glad you did it because I hate researching, but I'm here to talk about it.
I just hate when people I don't want to say this article's lying, but you can't just say very these kind of things and not have the facts to back them up. So
yeah, and I looked at it in just a completely different way, and it triggered me, and I knew there were a lot of talking points, and I didn't agree with everything, but I could potentially see both sides of it. Mm-hmm. But when you start really adding in how that would even work, it's just I don't know. I don't think it's as big of a threat. I think it's a big threat that there are a lot of people pulling their kids out of school.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. But I don't think it's a threat in the sense that people are doing it to be negligent.
I agree. So if you ever have articles or, I don't know, situations that happen that you want us to talk about, you can reach out to either of us on Instagram, leave a comment, get a hold of us. We're glad to take a look at these things and share our honest opinions about them.
And I am Blessed Homeschool Mess on Instagram, and Ashley is Gathered and Grounded.
Yeah.
Or you could just come to Two Homeschool Moms and leave us a comment on YouTube.
Yeah, wherever you're at.
Or email us. We're everywhere. So thanks for that chat. That was a good one. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
We want to hear from you. Your feedback is invaluable to us, so let us know your thoughts on today's episode. Share your topic suggestions or ask us any burning questions you may have. Your input shapes the direction of our podcast, and we're here to create content that resonates with you.
If you enjoy listening to homeschool stories, curriculum reviews, advice, struggles, and overall mom life, this podcast is for you. But so is our YouTube channels.
Don't forget to check out our individual channels. We share even more content, insights, and a behind-the-scenes look at our lives. Thanks for listening.